Kicking things off this week with Bengals punter Drue Chrisman and Brett Kollmann coming up next on Wincinnati Podcast.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Exciting time to be a Bengals
How do
fan.
you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time?
Yeah.
Shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati Podcast. I am Ace. Zim will be here shortly. We've got some pretty big guests planned for you guys. But coming up on today's show, Drue Chrisman is going to join the Wincinnati Podcast. He will be talking about all of the good that he's doing in Cincinnati with DoorDash and especially the competition. Then we'll be bringing in Brett Kollmann to break down the Bengals. He's had some great takes on them. Would love to hear what he has to say. And then we're going to look at the roster, more specifically the linebackers. So we'll get into that with our interview with Drue Chrisman coming up next. Podcast, we are going to bring in our guest, punter, DoorDasher, YouTuber, Drue Chrisman. How you doing today, Drue?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I see you got the DoorDash merch on. I see you.
They sent me some
swag.
swag. They sent me a nice little swag box this week, and I like the hat. You know, it fits well to the head. It's hard. I got an odd-shaped head, so anytime I get a good-looking hat, I make sure I rock it, and they're treating me well at the moment, so I'll support them.
They got to get you Bengals colors, man. They got to get you the Bengals colors.
They got me a beanie, actually, that was orange and white, I believe. So, you know, once it chills off in Ohio, which it, ultimately will, we'll be rocking it.
Yes, sir.
Right now it's a little hot right now.
For sure. How's your off season been, man? I know obviously you've been the talk of the town. You got some things going on, but from your vantage view, how has your off season been?
It's been busy. I always like to be a little busy though. I have a hard time just sitting around. Typically during this off season, I'll be down in Alabama training and kicking, and we got a 1-year-old now, so we kind of made the decision to stay closer to home. Even staying closer to home, I have plenty of things to keep me busy. My dad's fireworks store, that's something I've grown up in, out of the womb selling fireworks. So that's something I never get out of. So typically I'm really busy up to the 4th, then I can go down to Alabama. But this year, we stayed closer to home and had to find a way to get some extra work in. And that's when I picked up the little side gig I got going on right now.
Before I get into the side gig part, I'm very fascinated with the fireworks portion. I'm going to tell you, I have a mark on my face. I actually had a bad stim a long time ago. Popped me and my face was on fire. Cool story. I'll tell you the full story another day. Okay. But if you can name top 3 fireworks, what's your go-to when you like this? Have you seen this movement? I feel like on Twitter where it's like all these like mom-like figures that are just like, they're so against fireworks, and I feel like fireworks is such a big part of my life, like growing up or whatever. Like, you got like a top 3 that you just feel like are like, gotta go that route.
So I've seen so many fireworks in my lifetime at this point. It's exciting to see like a nice show where they have a good finale. It fills the sky with lights and everything, willow effects. You can put smiley face effects in the rock sounds. Like, I've seen that so many times. I'm at the point now where it's like, just give me a case of firecrackers and some bottle rockets and let me just go blow something up. And we have plenty of fun stuff like that. Like, we got M80s now, or as close as you can get to M80s. They get rid of all the fun stuff. They outlaw it all, and then somehow somebody sneaks it in one year and you're able to sell that until it's out. So I got some fun stuff tucked away that I can still, some finger removers.
I gotta get with you. I really do. I'm like, you gotta go across the bridge. You gotta go like further away. Like, I'm in DC, so you gotta go further away to like go get the real stuff, like make a quick trip. I gotta get with you on some of this stuff. I didn't want to get too far off topic, but you kind of hinted at the all season so far, the DoorDash thing. If people don't know the story, I know you've gone on a couple of different shows and you've talked about it. It's part of the reason why you're here now. Can you tell people how that started with the DoorDash thing and how that's working currently for you?
Yeah, just a little bit of an eggshell. I'll just say, like, it started off, as I mentioned, like trying to think of a way to, get a good workout while I was staying close to home this off season. And it was something I enjoyed in college was cycling. We lived next to this place called Cycle 614. My wife and I went to it just about every week. And, as a punter, any way I can, get a better workout with my legs, I do that. And cycling was a perfect way to do that. Great cardio and not super stressful on the legs. And then there's not one of those really close to Lawrenceburg, at least from the little bit of research I did. But then I swear my phone, the algorithm, your phone's always listening, showed me a video on Instagram of a guy doing DoorDash actually in DC, biking DC. I don't know if you've ever seen him on Instagram. You should check him out. He does a great job. When I first saw him, he was pretty small. He's actually blown up quite a bit. He just does DoorDash and kind of does a similar thing that I do. But he does that, for a career. He's got to do that for a living and then social media on the side. I've certainly turned the DoorDash into a little bit more than a career because certainly the money that I'm making from DoorDash, it's good. Like I mentioned, some people do it for a living, but I think the other career that I have going on at the moment is, keeping the lights on a little better. So I just found a way to use that money for a need that I noticed while I was riding around town, street level, literally with the bike. And I just noticed there was a little bit of a need on the streets. And I just found a way to use the little bit of the money that I was racking up over the weeks while I was DoorDashing, getting a good workout to support some local businesses, buy some food, and just hand it out to anybody that looked like they might have needed a helping hand up that day or just put a smile on their face with a good meal.
Nah, it's been dope, man. I mean, I watched your 4th of July episode. You dressed up, you went around. I saw another episode where you actually ordered for a DoorDasher and you put like $0 tips and stuff on there, and you were able to reward her. Like, what has been like some of the craziest or the most heartwarming reactions that you've gotten since you started doing this?
Yeah, I like to keep it entertaining. I think if you lose that, you kind of lose I think people would still support it, but, I think people enjoy an entertaining video, and then it can reach more people, then it can grow even more. And, through the power of social media, people have even reached out to me, businesses, and now just giving me food for free to hand out. So, I appreciate, like, the Cincinnati community as a whole is amazing as they really supported me in this. I'd say probably the best reaction I got was probably the very first one I did, which actually wasn't through DoorDash. I didn't use the money for it. It was the meal I delivered to a guy named John who sits out of the Chipotle down by Fountain Square. And it was a meal that I had taken from the facility, actually. Our Bengals personal chefs made a salmon and shrimp scampi meal for a guy that they never even knew. And I gave that meal to him. He opened it up, and I could just see just the kind of joy and just the spark in his eye just kind of light up. And it's something I kind of missed lately. I did a little bit of charity while I was in college, and I hadn't done too much of it lately, and just kind of thinking more outward rather than inward because I've been just so focused just on NFL in general, cracking through the final roster, playing for the hometown team, which has worked out. It's been great, but I feel like there was a little bit of part of me that I was missing. And when I saw that reaction from John, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the piece of the puzzle that truly makes me, happy. So
you talked about the roster a little bit. What are your overall impressions, or as you look back on the 2022 season for the Bengals? I've told people this many times. I even I do video edits and stuff. It's my favorite Bengals team of all time. You're on it. So what do you walk away feeling, when you talk about that season, overall, just give me that.
So I've been here, this is going to my 3rd year now. So I've only really known 2 locker rooms in the NFL. Both of these probably the two most successful seasons of, Bengals franchise history. I grew up a Bengals fan, so I know the down years very well. And especially, being behind Kevin and Clark, they were able to tell me like differences of this locker room and not. But I could just say like, it's very college-esque in a way, just in terms of just how close the guys are. College, you're kind of forced together, for 4 years, and you just kind of build that brotherhood just because of just how much time you spend together. It's a little bit harder than that to do that in the NFL, just with how many moving pieces there are. You kind of see the business side of it, the pay scale differential between players. Sometimes it's hard to, break those barriers and bring people together, but it's not like that at all from what I've understood. Like I said, I've only seen this locker room, but in a way it feels very brotherhood-like in terms of guys just finishing practice and then wanting to spend more time together, after the field, even though they might have a million things going on in their life, they still want to spend another 15, 20 minutes with the guy playing ping pong on a table or cornhole or shooting hoops after practice. And I've heard that's not something you see in most locker rooms. And Kevin and Clark said that, that hasn't been that way for the last decade or whatever. And now I don't know what's changed. It's probably been, front office, head coach or just the people they've been bringing in general. But it just seems like you're just bringing good dudes that have the same goal in mind and good things happen. And it's working. So
I've got two unrelated questions because you mentioned some hoop and stuff like that. Number one, do you have a jumper? And then number two is going to have to be, what was it like to play in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs in the conference playoffs or the AFC Championship, as that being kind of your welcome to the league moment?
Yeah. Yes, I got a jumper. No ifs, ands, but I got a jumper. I'll put myself up against anybody on the team in terms of like straight shooting as a way. So I don't shy away from any 3-point challenge for sure. We got the hoop in the weight room. That's turf field, so that's really all you can shoot. So I spend quite a bit of time on that hoop. I don't take anybody's money. I try to keep it. We'll just keep it for fun. But yeah, I got a decent jumper on me. And then in terms of just last season, I mean, my first game was at Pittsburgh. I think it was Sunday night. I think it was supposed to be Sunday Night Football. Then they ended up moving it to something else. So that was my first official NFL game. And I mean, every game just felt like it kind of got bigger after that, and especially once you hit the playoffs. I was fortunate to come from pretty prestigious college in Ohio State, so I played in some rather big games. There was a little bit of a different feeling though when you're playing for the conference championship, and I imagine even more so in the Super Bowl. The lights just get a little bit brighter. It was some special memories and ones that I won't forget. And obviously, we fell short. It's something we want to get back to, and nice little rivalry we got going on with the Chiefs. Should be get that one back and be on top of that. That'd be nice. But
Right.
It's going to be. I think anytime with the pieces are right in the locker room, I think you should see a championship coming pretty soon in the coming years.
In the AFC Championship game, in talking about the Chiefs, I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this. I feel like there's many different facets and many different things that are happening in the game. One thing that I will point to is, or I never heard anyone ask you this, the punt. Did you have instructions to say, this is what we want from a punt, or is it a situation where the punt came off your foot the wrong way? Because I've actually tweeted this before, that I feel like if the punt just goes out of bounds, I think we win the game.
That punt in particular is something, obviously it was my last play of the season. It was tough one, and certainly they got way too many yards than, they should have. That was a punt in particular, late in the game. Yeah, it'd be lovely to get that out of bounds. The weather was interesting that game. We were trying to figure it out all game. I think there was a right to left wind. We were trying to play it left. The wind did not pick up in the way that I expected, and obviously wound up in the middle of the field. And they just got way too many yards on that. And that's something that we can't have going forward. And it's a shame that was the last punt of the season and ended up in the kind of the negative outlook. But it's good. It's a good one to learn from. I think that's certainly something we'll look at going forward and try to eliminate any big plays like that in the future.
Well, that's good to have the context, though, because, right, like a lot of people that may not have been there, they may not have known about the weather factor and stuff like that. So it's good to always have context and stuff like that. In terms of that, talk to us about, like, what having a guy like Kevin Huber did for you in that position, because it seemed like he was just kind of – a lot of people felt like, you know, bring this guy on as like a special teams coach with just how classy he was with the transition between you and him.
Oh, Kevin was great from day one. I can remember even just as like undrafted rookie. So I was actually the first punter ever brought in while he was, you know, the active punter on the roster for 13, 14 years. And there's been never, there were some punters like when he broke his jaw and whatnot, you know, had to take his, finish the season for him or a game he might have missed here or there, but never a punter that directly brought in the preseason to compete with him. So, you know, I was kind of curious to, you know, how he would react in that, you know, kind of situation. But I mean, he was just first class. I mean, he was handing me extra cleats that he had to help me out. And never shied away from trying to teach me a certain part of the game just through his experience that he learned. Even ultimately, when I was promoted to the active roster and he was on the practice squad, there was never any bad feelings or whatever. And I feel like he just wants what's best for Cincinnati. I think that's all you can ask for in a teammate. So.
That's fine. We've actually interviewed two punters. We had Kevin.
Yeah, that's crazy.
On the show, and we've had Drue. So, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, we had. Yeah,
we're showing love to
about
punter,
that.
Man.
There you go.
Yeah, we're showing punter love, man. I was gonna say, you were talking about the Chiefs game. Like, I was so surprised. Like when you just said that, Ace, about the context of it. I was watching the kickers in pregame, and I don't remember them hitting anything like from 50 because I felt like it was so cold that the football had to be felt like a brick on your foot at that point. Like I've never punted or I've never kicked, so I don't know. But I could tell like before the game, like the weather definitely played a factor in the weight of the football. Is that true?
I mean, but being professional though, you can't blame it on the weather. I mean, you got to get the job done. But Kansas City, late in January, that's a tough place to be.
It's different. When I got off the plane, I remember I was going to go and get an Uber, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming outside." And as soon as I went out, the air just hit me, and it was so different. And I've been in a lot of places where it's really, really cold, but that was one of the coldest games I've ever been to. I set my water bottle down in the cup holder, and it froze. Like it was sick. Like, I don't know if people talk about it, and I wouldn't say that as an excuse, but man, it just was different. I don't know if people realize that about.
I think that's what makes football so fun too, guys. I mean, there's so many external factors that go into a game. You just never know what's going to happen.
For sure.
You know, we played them, I think, early in the season, and it was like one of the. I think might have been wearing shorts at that time, you know, short sleeves, and then it's almost a completely different game when you add an element like that. So, at the end of the day, you just got to win no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, you have a competition with Brad Robbins. He went to Michigan. You went to Ohio State. I'm a Bucs fan. Has there been any friendly banter between you guys when it comes to the rivalry of the colleges that you guys went to?
Not too much, mainly because since there is that, you know, very intense rivalry and you play him every year, you get to know the guy pretty well. And so I know the guy. I mean, we're pretty good. We were actually pretty good friends before I even knew that he was coming to Cincinnati, and now hanging out with him for the last, you know, during OTAs, whatever, that 2 months or whatever. You can just see it. And just kind of just real down to earth, you know, he's just a good guy. Not all those Team Up North guys are as bad as they might seem, but it's gonna be fun. You know, this is Hollywood, man. Ohio State, Team Up North. This is what the people come to see. So, you know, excited, and I'm used to it at this point. It seems like every year, you know, you got to earn your spot, even if there isn't someone in the locker room. That's just how the NFL works. You know, there's only 32 jobs, so if you're not getting the job done one place, you know, they're going to try to find the next best thing. So. You're always competing against yourself in a way, but now, you know, obviously there's someone directly in the locker room. So I'm excited for it. It's another challenge, and, you know, whatever's best for Cincinnati, we'll see where the cards fall.
Right. You talked about wearing shorts earlier in the December game, which I always, like me online, I really like to highlight that game. That's one of my favorite games. But going into like pregame stuff and what you do, like, is there like a thing that punters do, like pregame, that just all punters do that people don't know, or is there something superstitious that you do personally before, like, you get ready?
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of got their own little routine they've got to a certain point. I don't know if I do anything more weird than another punter. I kind of had to learn through Kevin. I was a more is more guy, so I'd go out there and kick 50 balls before the game. And Kevin, being the savvy vet that he was, that was one of the biggest things he taught me. I was like, you don't need to kick that many balls. Like, the game's an hour from now. Save the leg. It's a long season. That was another big learning thing I learned last year, was just, I never played really until full games week after week until, almost February. If it's college, you have like the bowl season, you get to take a little bit of time off before a bowl game, but just seeing the longevity of the season and be able to manage that was something he was really helping out with. So something I tried to do was limit my warm-up reps pregame. And in terms of superstition stuff, I don't know. I don't wear long socks. I'm an ankle sock guy. Like to show off the ankles a little bit, no matter how cold it was. I can remember New England
showing the ankles.
I got like that much skin showing right on the ankles, and people are thinking I'm crazy, but I don't really feel the cold in the legs. The upper body, though, that'll get me, and the hands. I'm running out there with a hand warmer with 3 different hot packs in the little pouch, trying to just stay as warm as possible in the digit situation. But yeah, legs, I put as skinniest tights on as possible and very short socks, and I can make do.
Yes, sir. Well, Drue, we want to be respectful of your time. One last question before you get out of here. Is there anything that the community can do to help you with the DoorDash initiative, or is there anything that you want people to know how they can help out or contribute or anything like that?
Certainly. Yeah, you can check out my social media. I'm very active on there right now, posting videos and everything. Any support there, that would be great. If you are connected in some way with a food shelter or a restaurant that also was looking to give back, that would be feel free to reach me out. I'm pretty open to any kind of communication. Don't feel like I won't see your message on Twitter. I'll probably see it. And then I would just kind of say, even if it's something you don't want to necessarily support this cause, but you want to look and give back in some way, it doesn't take, some grand adventure to go out and make someone's day. I loaded an app and then got on a bike and then just turned it into something using my platform. Obviously it's turned into something greater, but you can just do something your own way. I don't know, wash your mom's dishes before she asks you to, or mow your neighbor's yard, or, compliment someone while you just see them randomly on the street. And I've kind of noticed doing this myself, sometimes just having a conversation with somebody that, just might be a little lonely that day. That could completely change their day. It doesn't have to be giving them some money or, a free meal, but, sometimes just a conversation, an ear to a shoulder to lean on could, really change someone's day. So that'd be something I would want to support.
I really appreciate that time. Drue, I did want to, you said the social media, but you didn't say, what is the handle? What is the Twitter handle?
So Instagram and Twitter are DChrisman91. YouTube is Chrisman Crew, and then TikTok, just started that up, is Drue Chrisman. It's just my full name. So, and then who knows what is it? Threads? I don't know.
Threads.
Get back to you on.
You can go get any name you want on Threads.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see what that might turn into. Might check that one out as well.
Well, Drue, we appreciate you for stopping by, and best of luck with the competition coming up. And who day, brother?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Who day?
All right, that was Drue Chrisman. Zim, any quick thoughts on Drue coming through or anything that happened with that?
It's a lot, man, but ultimately, I just want to say thanks, Drue, if you're watching this, man. I thought that was dope. I think what you're doing for the city of Cincinnati, super dope, even the neighboring areas around there. So continue to do the good work that you're doing. A lot of people have asked how they can, be a part of it too, but just follow Drue on his Twitter. Make sure you keep up with those updates. And like Drue said, it doesn't mean Just because you don't do anything with him and the DoorDash campaign and different things like that doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to do something good around your area too, the same way that he does. And at the same time, building up his social media platforms. So it's a win-win. I like him. I like the interview. What are you feeling?
I thought it was dope, man. I thought that he's a pretty funny guy, pretty dope guy doing things for the city of Cincinnati. So I thought he was pretty honest, and I thought it was a pretty dope interview. But with that being said, we have another guest. So if you are catching this live, looks like we have some people watching now. If you haven't watched, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to bring in Brett Kollmann. Brett, what's going on, bro?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, bro, man. We saw your viral video. It was kind of viral in the Bengals community. I know it's pretty viral because you do great work there. Once we saw that, we were like, man, we got to bring Brett back on. Love your perspective. Love the grind of the film. Love the breakdown of the numbers that you did there. So definitely glad to have you here. One question I want to ask you is, how is the channel doing? It seems like you're really expanding. You're taking things to the next level. How are you liking the new home studio downtown? Like, how are things with you?
It's been good. EJ's over there in the kitchen right now. He's down. We're working on AFC South videos this week. So those are coming out in a few weeks. I think we're doing AFC West starting on Monday, which we recorded like 3 weeks ago. It's like 9 straight weeks essentially of an episode every single day. And it's a grind. You know, we're doing an hour to an hour and a half on every single team, obviously Bengals included. They were in week 2. And then we do like an hour or so on the divisions as a whole and picking division winners and everything like that. So it's very meaty off-season content, but people seem to like it so far.
Oh, we love it, man. It's very in-depth. If you haven't checked it out, definitely be sure to check Brett's stuff out for sure. Especially if you're a Bengals fan, or even if you just want to know more about the division,
For
the
sure.
AFC in general, it's definitely great content.
Yeah, the NFL in general is the bootleg podcast. Gotta check it out. I've been kind of like sharpening my tools, finding out about all the opposition. The AFC North one that you guys did, you guys look like y'all were running on fumes. It was night. It was like we got a job to do, but you guys pulled it out, and I thought it was a really good show. So don't feel like just because we're talking to Brett about the Bengals today, they're not covering all the different teams. But of course, you are on the Bengals platform. Going into the 2022 season, one of the main things that stuck out, we even made a graphic for it on our show and stuff, is the number of kneel downs. And that crazy stat that came out of that show, and just going through the data, 6% of the Bengals snaps, charitable, I guess, in the whole scheme of things, 6% were kneel downs in victory formation. Can you speak on that, expand on that, and give people like a little bit more insight on that?
Yeah, it was so it's a section that we do where we give percentages for every type of run play that they have. And we have passing stats, we have pass defense stats, run defense stats, and then our run stats is like what are the types of schemes that they use. And you know, that's that bred a talking point of like, oh, we think with Zach Taylor it's going to be so outside zone heavy, and then we're like, whoa, wait a minute, they actually ran a lot of duo. Like they switched up to a gap scheme team last year. That's interesting. And we kind of jumped off there. But while I was looking up those stats, I was like, wait a minute, 6% of every run in this offense was a kneel down. They had the exact same number of kneel downs as power run calls the entire year, which just goes to show that, you know, at the end of halves and at the end of games, they were usually so locked up that they didn't have to run any plays. They could just kneel it out and win.
Yeah, after we got out of that week 4, they changed, and you'll see like in that Ravens game, like it might have happened like second half, but they just were like, we're just getting out of this crap. Nothing was hitting that second half. And I think you kind of talked about it like early in the season, and I think that's what they wanted to do. And then they got into that the pin and pull stuff, and then going to the gap scheme stuff like right around that time. And then they hit the ground running, I think, after that.
No, he hit the nail on the head because it just wasn't working. It wasn't working, so they had to revert back to that. But a lot of people going into the season said that 2021 was a fluke, right? The Bengals weren't going to get that much lucky. They weren't going to end up being that same team. At what point during last year's season did you realize like this team wasn't a fluke and that they were for real?
It's interesting because we were actually at the Dallas game in Dallas because we went to a Texas game down in Austin the day before, and then we drove up to Dallas to catch Bengals Cowboys the next day, and they struggled in that game. They really did. Like they were calling a bunch of cover two, and in the first month of the season, Joe was just not seeing cover two super well. They couldn't pass protect. They couldn't run the ball. And like they still fought until like literally the last second. It was a game-winning field goal. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, it's not right. But even with them not being right, they still almost won. So once they do inevitably get right, they're going to be a powerhouse again. And then I think like 3 weeks after that was really where the run started, where it was just damn near impossible to beat them. And so I kind of feel like they're almost like the new Patriots, where the Patriots every single year, they start out 2-2 in the Tom Brady era, and everybody's like, oh, this is the year it's falling apart. And it's like, no, they need till October to figure out what kind of team they are. And then once you get to October, that's when you see like the real Bengals, and it takes off from there.
I think a lot of people still aren't convinced. And I run into that a lot because I feel like it's a lifetime of conditioning for a lot of teams, not just the Bengals, where you just seen them not be on the upper end of things. So people will take that comment and be like, what do you mean the Patriots? But I think when you compare like the efficiency of them and different things that they do, especially on defense, to change that what they do to make the transitions throughout the game, the real-time adjustments. Talk to me about what you think the Bengals did. In your video, you said you thought that the Bengals got better.
Yeah, and I think in specifically they got better against cover two. Like that was just a coverage that was really, really kind of eating them up early in the year. Joe was throwing some pretty irresponsible balls. Corners were kind of trapping him in the flats, and you would see him like almost kind of, which you never see Joe double pump, but all of a sudden like a corner would fall off and be in the flat, and he'd be like, oh God. And once they kind of figured out that teams were just going to stick in cover two against them, even in early downs, and they kind of got like used to that, you saw Joe like literally adjust in real time during the season, like between weeks 3 and week 6. His numbers against cover two drastically changed because I think he started to expect it more. And once Joe figures you out, it's kind of over, right? So as for what I would expect this year, it's tough because on one hand, he gets the ball out so quick, so you kind of can't really rely on a 4-man rush unless you have like, say, a Myles Garrett going up against Jonah and beating him in less than 2 seconds, which of course they opened the season against Cleveland. So we'll see how that goes. But most teams don't have Myles Garrett, right? So they got to find a way to get pressure in under 2.5 seconds. And so I would imagine we're going to see teams blitzing them a lot more this year and trusting their guys to hold up on the back end, which very few teams, I think, are equipped to do that. Ironically, Cleveland is also one of them just because they have a trio of really, really good corners. But most defenses in the AFC don't have the guys to hold up against Jamar and T and Tyler and like even Charlie, who they just drafted out of Purdue. Like I'm a huge fan of him too. So I don't want to say that it's like an easy win, but I would say there's maybe like 4 teams in the AFC that realistically could match up against this team and give them like real trouble on defense.
I got to do it. You mentioned Jonah there, and I know we haven't seen him at right tackle. Obviously, you dug through the tape and the analytics. Jonah versus Lyle, I think, is a very interesting conversation. Obviously, Lyle is kind of hurt right now. If it were up to you, between those two guys, who would you kind of trust based off of the scheme and just how you've kind of monitored those two guys at the right tackle position?
If Lyle is healthy, Lyle. And Jonah wasn't exactly a pinnacle of health last year either, right?
Yeah.
But I always feel like Jonah, even in the years where he was like quote unquote healthy, he just doesn't really have the core strength to me.
Yeah.
He's never had the core strength. And I feel like he always has to set his anchor so hard because he doesn't have the ability to re-anchor once somebody gets into his chest. Like that's what Miles did earlier in Miles' career. He just run right through him because he was never able to kind of do like that 2-footed hop and re-anchor. It was just once he was on a sled, he was gone. So he's never really had the core strength. And so he always had to like really, really clamp down and drop anchor early, which then made him susceptible to lunging and guys beating him outside early. So that's kind of my one thing with Jonah is I feel like he's never been strong enough, and that's why I always felt like he was kind of honestly like a better fit at guard.
Yeah.
Because the runway is so much less at guard that he can jump people and not have to worry so much about guys with a 6-yard head start running into his chest. And maybe he will end up at guard eventually there, depending on how things shake out. But if Lyle was healthy, I would say Lyle, just because Lyle, I think, has a better anchor.
Yeah.
Man, I wasn't expecting you to ask that. That's a good one. This whole entire offseason, that's what we've been as Bengal fans. And when you got to that part on the tape, I think you guys had talked about you don't know the full story on it. So, Lyle at this point has been looking really, really strong. But then Jonah wasn't really talking to the media through a 3-month period. So, and then the trade rumor stuff started happening. So then it became like this back and forth between like Bengals Twitter, like who should start at right tackle. And then, you've added the addition of Cody Ford. So I think that's really interesting. I just thought in my mind, I guess I'm team Lyle in this scenario because now with Orlando Brown on the left side, and then you would have like another guy that's like, 6'8" on the other side. Like you got these two giants on the both ends. That alone to me is like an identity and something that Joe Burrow's never had in his short tenure as a Cincinnati Bengal. I could just be jumping
guys who can survive 2.5 seconds. That's it. Like they can lose. They just got to lose slow because then the ball's going to be out anyway. Like that's all he needs.
Did you see the Orlando Brown interview where he was talking about like the difference between the depth and the drop, and he didn't want to single out Mahomes, but this was like last week. And he just talked about how he could be more aggressive now.
I found that interesting because earlier in Mahomes' career, like, yes, he would drop super deep. He would drop to 11 yards. He'd drop to 12 yards. And it was a legitimate problem. Like, I did episodes on it. Like, it was an actual problem. He like when Mitch Schwartz was playing, like, he would make Mitch's life hell because he would set his landmark so deep and give Mitch a horrible angle. Last year, though, that wasn't a thing. Like he wasn't doing that last year, and Orlando was still giving up, top 5 pressure percentage in the entire league last year. Orlando was just getting beat. Like there was, like he can blame it on whatever he wants to, but like no, Mahomes was sitting at an 8-yard depth. Like they ran more 12 and 13 personnel than anybody else. They ran more quick game than anybody else. Orlando was just getting beat, so he can blame it on Mahomes all he wants. Like 2021 Mahomes, sure, fine. 2022 Mahomes, like. That was not a problem.
So switching to the defensive side of the ball, you talked a lot about coverages on your breakdown on the Bengals and what they run and that they're real heavy in man coverage. But you also talked about DJ Reader and how he allows them to run cover 2 on early downs. Do people really understand like how much he influences like the offense?
I mean, I think if they watch the 4 games that he wasn't out there and then they watch the 13 games that he was, they would understand. And I'm thinking about doing a video dedicated to DJ Reader because like he's so incredibly underrated, even though he's not going to get the stats that a lot of other like dedicated, pass rushing 3 techniques get. He's literally what makes the defense work. Like he makes the system work. Lou Anarumo would not be able to get away with calling the coverages that he calls without DJ Reader. So as far as like who's the most valuable player on that defense, it's DJ. And I don't really think it's particularly close to me.
Thank you.
We actually had DJ on, so friend of the show, like, yeah, the way that you broke it down, just like saying, and we've always been in Twitter spaces saying, like, you're not going to be able to run on us with DJ Reader. Like, we always tell people that up front. Browns fans, anybody who we played against, we always tell them, you cannot run on DJ Reader. It's insanity.
One of the things I think you highlighted is allows the Bengals to have lighter boxes and be able to go coverages. And one of the things that I stress to a lot of people is so many times fans online get so enamored in the quarterback conversations that they're not paying attention to Lou Anarumo, and they're not paying attention to the Bengals, even without their cornerback one, didn't relinquish one. They only allowed one 300-yard passer, and I thought he got most of that in garbage time, and that was Tom Brady throughout the whole season. The Bengals defense allowed the lowest completion percentage and the lowest quarterback rating in the National Football League this past season without their quarterback one. Moving forward into the cornerback room, what did you see about DJ Turner on tape that makes you feel like it'll be a good fit or a bad fit for this game?
Well, I think it's a great fit, and I'll be perfectly honest. Every Bengals fan knew that if Emmanuel Forbes was on the board, they were taking Emmanuel Forbes. Like it's
a Forbie right here. He's a Forbie. I was so against Forbes. He's a Forbie. I said he's too small.
I'd like them because of the ball skills and being able to get the interception. That was my main
I totally get that. But I'm telling y'all, you dodged a bullet. Like you dodged a massive bullet. Because like I went back and I watched every single pick. I watched every single pass deflection.
Tip passes.
And like there was some where it's like there was a seam ball that he was like 3 yards behind the receiver. Like he got toasted. He was a marshmallow on a fire. And the ball was underthrown and he caught it. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like I get it. He got picks, but guys, he got beat. Like there was an out route that he got a pick on. Where again he got left in the dust and the quarterback threw it like 4 yards behind the receiver and he just turned and he caught it. Like respect to him for catching it, but I'm like, you put his tape up against DJ Turner, it wasn't close to me. Like it wasn't close. Like DJ's got like Forbes had good movement skills, but he's also 166 pounds. So DJ's bigger, he's explosive, he's got better deep speed. He didn't lose as much. And I think there's something to be said for, sometimes guys that don't have as much ball production is because they don't get thrown at.
Yeah.
I thought DJ was such a better player than Forbes. And I thought that Washington taking that bullet for them was the best thing to happen to the Bengals in this draft. Hey, they got a better player in the first round.
In my defense, though, Zim, who was my other guy? Turner. I was on the DJ Turner train early.
I don't think you're lying to us, but I don't remember as much. I do remember PFF showing so many stats from Turner saying he was the number one man cover, and so I'm not a big college football.
I got put on to him because when I did prime, he was super high.
Okay,
based off of whoever the Bengals targeted at corner, he was super high on that threshold. And I remember asking like Jake, and I was like, why don't people like DJ Turner? So I was excited that we got him, especially where we got him at, the value. You can't beat that. Whereas
Brett,
I feel like Forbes, I don't know if the value would have been there like at 28. Like Miles Murphy is a way better. And then also getting DJ Turner in a second that late, like that's crazy. I thought DJ Turner had a chance of going like late first. And we got him at the end of the second, which was crazy.
Brett, have you ever gone in like Twitter Spaces before? You should. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've done a couple here and there.
Okay, but all right. So sometimes like they get crazy. Sometimes I feel like more persons like yourself need to come in and be able to, like, one thing that kind of like moves people a little bit is like someone that actually has grinded out a tape, and then they can go to like reference points, and then it like kills. Like, I mean, you're the man already on social, but I think you'd be so good for it. As we were saying that, I was like, man, it would have been so dope to have Brett like in one of them one day.
But
I try to make like some TikToks every now and then where like I break down a concept, and then like some 15-year-old pops in and says, "You don't know ball," and I'm like, I'm gonna go back to YouTube.
You might get frustrated with me. This is insane.
One of the shocks for me, which it wasn't really a shock because I figured we'd take a safety, but I didn't know that they would take Jordan Battle that early. How do you feel about Jordan Battle and him fitting into the scheme that Lou Anarumo runs?
That was an interesting one to me because, like, when I watched Battle, I got some Cam Chancellor vibes a little bit. Not I don't think he's the same guy as Cam Chancellor, but in terms of the role, right? Just a big, like, rough and tumble, strong safety. You're putting him down in the box. Like, he could take on a guard in the second level and not get killed. Great tackler in space. I questioned whether or not he would fit in with like a lot of the defenses like the Vic Fangio tree that play a lot of quarters. Because what people don't realize is that when you're in quarters, your safeties are basically like corners. Like they got to play man down the field against number 2 when you carry it vertical. I didn't think he could do that. I didn't think he could flip his hips and run vertically. But if he was playing from like a 12-yard shelf and under, and making plays in the backfield, playing like as a hook zone defender, playing as a curl flat defender, and just going forward. If he was always going forward, I thought he would be a great player. Looking at what Lou did last year, he was 22nd in cover 3. And so maybe they're drafting him because they feel like they want to play a little bit more cover 3 and have him be like a true box safety. At the same time, they were 18th in quarters and they were 21st in quarter half. So he wouldn't be that exposed to the stuff that I don't think he does that well anyway, because they were mostly a lot of cover 1 and a lot of cover 2. So like it is a system fit, but I also think that picking him maybe is a tell that they want to play a little bit more cover 3 this year.
Do you think that he has a chance to start over Nick Scott? Because a lot of people feel like it's a competition more so than Scott is just the guy that's going to get handed the job.
They're very different players to me. I think Scott's a lot rangier. I think Scott, like if I did need to have a guy that could hold up one-on-one against a receiver, like I would trust him a little bit more with that. I just think they have very different skill sets. And so to be perfectly honest, you could just rotate guys, depending on what you want to run, depending on game plan, and hell, like you could play a 3 safety nickel. Yeah. I think Lou's just going to take like the 11 DBs he has on the roster, and depending on, the game plan he has from week to week, figure it out from there. Cause he has a bunch of guys that can do different stuff.
For sure.
One of the things you were talking about earlier, and I didn't want to go to the offensive side so fast, but you brought up Charlie Jones. You gave your kind of stamp of endorsement on how good you think he is. Talk to me about do you think that that's a direct Tyler Boyd replacement? How do you see his role in this Bengals offense?
Yeah, I think he's going to be like 2024 Tyler Boyd. Obviously, he's not going to be. He's going to be the 4 in 2023 unless somebody goes down, but. Like he is going to be the new slot in 2024. And he's not like a prototypical slot guy. He's not like the 5'9", super twitchy. He is more of an outside receiver that will play in the slot. But he's a great route runner. He's fearless through contact over the middle. He's got great ball skills. Does have some deep gas. So if we want him to be a vertical threat down the middle when we're running 989, because we know that Joe loves to run 989 with 2 go routes down the boundaries and a middle read up the middle. I would say if we want more gas on that middle read, we have Charlie run it instead of Tyler. But I would expect that Charlie's going to get more playing time in 2024 than 2023, just because we're not in an urgent need to replace Tyler Boyd here,
You know what's so crazy? Everybody online, as soon as they saw we drafted a white wide receiver, they immediately said, well, he's Cooper Kupp. He's da-da-da. You know who my comp is? Michael Gallup.
Oh, that's a good one, actually.
I had actually watched a lot.
Yeah.
Well, as you were saying, I was like, very, very similar. You go watch some of the stuff, even before the injury or whatever, being able to get, go outside, but maybe not a strong suit, like kind of the Charlie, so.
Yeah, I was seeing people. It's like, oh, he's going to be their Wes Welker, and it's like they're not.
No.
Melanin is the only thing that's the same, or lack of melanin. Like that's it,
For sure. Keeping it on the offensive side, does Burrow have his own tier, like just below Mahomes, or does he belong in a second tier with some other quarterbacks, in your opinion?
Ooh. This is tough because Mahomes to me is the 1. And then there's a bunch of different guys that are fighting for the 2 spot. In terms of consistency and his ability to really just take over the game by himself, I would probably put Burrow at 2 right now,
Mhm.
slightly ahead of the collection of Herbert and Lamar and Allen and Lawrence isn't all the way there yet, but he will be eventually. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys that are like nipping at his heels for number 2. But as EJ likes to say, it's against his religion to bet against Joe. So if I had to put them up against any of them, I'd still feel more comfortable betting on Joe.
You know, it gives me great solace though when I watch that show, and I've been promoting the hell out of your show like you wouldn't believe. Even I go on Twitter Spaces, because I think people need to hear it from like a third party source sometimes. But I was very, very happy to see, and I didn't get a chance to watch everybody. But one of the things that I always tell people, it is a different style of game. So your preference could be running. It might be Lamar. It might be, Josh Allen with the big arm and all these different things. And I'm not mad at that. Joe Burrow is just, to me, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He might be 5'6", depending on how you do it. But I was very surprised to see that you guys had the Bengals ultimately as your number 1 rated team based off on the score that you guys give at that time that you have recorded at. Now, I haven't seen all of the teams, but can you just talk to everyone, I guess, about how that score, I know it's a good amount of stuff based off of EPA per play, all the different impacts things, but the reason why I think that the Bengals are really dangerous in my eyes is because they have a better team. Whereas a lot of these other guys that they're saying they're better, like a Josh Allen, are a lot more reliant on Josh Allen.
Yeah, and it's because they're a complete team, right? Like, there are holes on the roster, but in terms of like entire units or entire side of the ball, when EJ was putting together the EPA per play numbers, like they were 12th in EPA per play in their rushing attack. They were 6th in their passing attack. They were 6th in their pass defense, and they were 18th in run defense. But again, that's because DJ missed 4 games. Like, they would have been a lot higher if DJ was there the entire year. They were 8th in points scored and 5th in points allowed. So they were a tremendous red zone defense and red zone offense. So just having a complete team and, oh, by the way, an elite quarterback, it's a recipe for being a championship contender every single year. The hard part for Duke Tobin is keeping up with when your roster becomes expensive. Because when you're paying Joe $50+ million a year, you're paying Jamar at least what Tyreek is making, so that's 30+. They're saying they're going to keep T. Lord, I'd love to know how. Like, that's 25, so it's like I get the stadium naming rights, but it's like, good luck having that much cash. And they insist that they're going to be able to do it, but like, it's hard. It's really hard. And I truly believe that, Joe, who gets compared so much to Tom Brady, like, if he wants to make it work, there's going to have to be a similar type of deal to what Mahomes signs. And I mean, 10 years, rolling cap, the ability to manipulate it year over year, because Mahomes left a lot of money on the table when he did that deal in exchange for being able to pay Travis, being able to pay Chris, being able to pay, a lot of the players, especially on the offensive line, that like make it possible for them to win Super Bowls. Joe's going to have to do the same thing. And the Bengals can make it worth his while with like a 10-year deal that's worth $500 million. But that's kind of the only way they're going to be able to keep this core together from a cap perspective. For
sure. Speaking of those receivers, need your top 5 receivers in the NFL today.
Jefferson, Jamar, Tyreek, Diggs, and you can kind of order these any way you want to. Number 5. I'm between Kupp and Devontae. I'd still probably lean Devontae, but Kupp's right there.
Nah, that's not a bad 5 at all.
That's my 5. That's my 5. It's not that order, but that's my 5. Like, it's Jefferson and Jamar. Because when I was telling somebody this earlier today, think about everybody that you just named, or think about anybody's perspective, top 10 or whatever, right? And some people base things more on accomplishments. Some people put more on projections, whatever. But when you look at Jamar and Jefferson, those are the two guys. I don't care what the category is. I feel like they're the best of the best at what they do. Whereas when you're looking at Tyreek, is he the greatest catcher of all time? Like, he doesn't have to be the elite ball catcher, but he does a lot of body catching. Is he the best, is he the best, like, high point guy? Like, no, but he's the fastest and he's elite and he's scary as hell. And I just think if you took Jamar Jefferson in all those categories, I think Devontae is kind of like in that breath too. But the only thing with me is like now he's getting closer to 30. So is it really the same?
I think he might be over 30 now because he was a 2014 guy. So he might be over 30 now.
He might be. And Cup is what, 29?
At least. He might also be 30 this year too.
So I base a little bit on that. Let me say this. Moving forward, we talked to you before. I feel like you're a lot higher on our Bengals than what we were probably a year prior. I think the sun is shining on you. You got that amazing view. What do you think 2023 season? How does the Bengals season end?
Ooh, God. Well, I think they at least
put you on the spot. This is the part where they're going to clip the video, and then we're going to pull this up for you later on.
I think they win the division. I think they win the wild card game. And then division round, I think it's setting up for a division round against the Chiefs. And I'll be honest, whoever's healthier is winning that game. Yeah. And that's the big bad, right? Like that, everybody knows, like, it's Cincinnati, KC. That's what it's coming down to. Now, Miami's lurking in the back, but I think that right now Bengals fans hate Chiefs fans more than anything else, and they both want to face each other in January. I think it will come down to that, and then winner advances to the AFC Championship.
You feel like the Bills missed the window?
I don't know about miss the window because I think the window's still open, but last year was the most open I think it's going to be based on the age of certain players, how their cap is. I think last year was the year.
For sure. Well, Brett, we appreciate you. Please let people know where they can find your stuff.
Before I go, I have one question.
Sure.
And this is a projection. Over the next 10 years, who is going to be better at their sport? Joe or Ellie?
I think this is easy for me.
Already kind of up there. I'm not gonna lie. Like
this is easy for me. I feel like it's Ellie. It based off of talent and like I was asking my boy Game On. He's in the crowd. I said, "What does he remind you of? Like Ricky Henderson?" He said, "Yeah, Ricky Henderson and Aaron Judge." So to me, it's like generational, which is insane, right? But this is the thing think about how they talk about Brady now. Like depending on who you talk to, they'll give you stories on how he's not really the greatest athlete of all time. He isn't really that good. It's really Belichick. It's all these different things, but he's got all this success. And I think you'll look at Joe Burrow as he's one of the more successful quarterbacks of all time because at that point it'll be championships. But I just think Ellie Mania is about to take you by storm.
It's already there, man. They were checking his bat today, and then he cranked out a 455-foot homer, man. Like he's
checked it twice, man. I'm gonna go with Ellie just because he's got youth on his side. He's 21 right now. He's probably going to be 31. Baseball players can play for a very long time. Joe at that point will probably be 36, so he won't be washed or anything, but I don't know if he's going to be another Tom Brady where it's like another 45 or something like that. So I'm going to go with Ellie, but I still think Burrow's going to be that guy. But Brett, please let the people know where they can find the Underdog Podcast, where they can find you on Twitter and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so we are still smack dab in the middle of this offseason series. We got the AFC West coming up next. So if you guys want to hear us talk about all of your chief rivals in the AFC and kind of deep diving on that, it's over on the Bootleg Football Podcast channel. We're starting off with Denver on Monday, and then it's the Raiders on Tuesday, and then we got the Chargers and the Chiefs on Wednesday and Thursday. And then that is the direct halfway point. Then we got 4 more weeks of that coming after. So, if you guys are bored and you want to hear an hour to an hour and a half of very, very in-depth football every single day, Bootleg Football Podcast, where you can find that.
Yep, definitely check out the Bootleg
Hell yeah.
Podcast. It's great material, great stats and everything. Once again, Brett, thank you for joining the show, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Man, check out those vibes. Wouldn't you like to have a view like that? I feel like I just need to step my game up, go clean my windows off.
He deserves it, man. The deep dives that they do, the analytics, the film grinding. I mean, Brett's been doing this thing forever. I mean, anytime he says something, I'm just like, this dude knows what he's talking about. That's why I had to ask him the Jonah. A lot of people say, we're just Jonah hater.
I'm clipping that one.
He's clearly saying the same things that we're saying. He just gets bull rushed all the time. But hey, speaking of,
I gotta clip that one.
Like that, let's go and toss it to our friends at Midwest Best Barbecue.
Welcome to Midwest Best, home of the G-Funk and Uno Wings. It started out very simple. When you can't find something that you like, you make it yourself. That small dissatisfaction has turned into our family business. Finding a good barbecue sauce without artificial smoke was almost impossible. So my husband, Tim, decided to create his own. Simply Sweet was born in our home kitchen in 2008. Our core values that we have for our family are values we felt were just as important to lay the foundation for our business and have in our team. Hard work, accountability, giving it your very best, warmth, care, and empathy, and of course, loving the Bengals. Our core mission at Midwest Best Barbecue is to be the place where warm smiles and comforting food made with love give you a meal out, but with all the feelings of home. Where our Uno wings make you do the gritty, and our sweet tea always hits the spot.
Hooray! 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 They gon' beat the Bengals! Hooray! 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 They gon' beat the Bengals! No!
Shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. They even have the ribs sometimes on the weekends, so definitely be sure to check in with them. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you. I know it's pretty hot. 4th of July, they said it was the hottest day that we've had in history. Cool off with some of that ice cream. They got the ice cream there as well, so definitely be sure to holler at Midwest Best Barbecue 669 Justice Court. Let's talk about linebackers, and we're going to do this rapid fire since we have spent some time here. The offseason, we held on to an important piece of the defense. Were you surprised that Jermaine Pratt re-signs him?
Super surprised. That's why you can never read into too much until you hear from the person's mouth themselves. A lot of messages that were interpreted as cryptic. I don't believe that. I just thought people just tweet about other things other than football sometimes. I thought his press conference after he signed, I don't know if you were there, we were in Spaces, but I thought it was really good. So that was a huge shock. Do Logan
Wilson and Pratt get the recognition they deserve around the league? I'm going to say no. A lot of people, if you say Jermaine Pratt, they are acting like there's this big gap between him and Roquan. I don't believe so at all. Honestly, I think Jermaine Pratt is a top linebacker in the NFL. I don't know if you want to say top 15, top 20. I think he's right there. I think he's ascending, and I think that he's morphing into a player, him and Logan Wilson, into being potentially the best duo in the NFL if we're keeping it a buck, especially in the division. I will confidently say that. I don't think Pat Queen and Roquan hold a candle near those two guys. Go ahead.
I do. I think that is an interesting thing because Patrick Queen's athleticism in the season that he just had was really, really good. So I do think that they're very comparable. But the difference to me is the Bengals' room. With Akeem Davis-Gaither, Bocce behind it, and you still got Marcus Bailey. These are all guys that have played meaningful roles in big games and playoff football games that have played well. When Pratt and guys like that went out, Akeem Davis-Gaither, remember, had 13 tackles. Remember the first time that we beat Lamar, Akeem Davis-Gaither shadowed Lamar Jackson in that game, and it was very impactful in that game before Lamar got hurt later on in the 2021 season.
So you don't think Trenton Simpson is a replacement for Pat Queen?
Sure, but
Yep.
sure, but he's a rookie and he's an unknown. I know that there was rumors that he was on the trading block, Patrick Queen, but
Yep.
until I see it, he's currently on the roster. And the other thing I was going to say is for the amount of money. One thing that I wanted to ask Brett Kollmann, and I challenge all fans when they say Burrow's going to get 50 and T's going to get 20 and whatever. You got to look at some of these other teams what they're currently playing some of their top guys. PFF put out a stat that I just retweeted on my Twitter account. I want everybody to check it out. It's talking about the Bengals having the #1 salary cap held in the National Football League, and that is based off of their current cap held. That is their actual cap space right now and what they're projected with the upcoming contracts. In contrast, you can look at a team like the Ravens and come up with the same formula. Instead of a $25 million T. Higgins, it's a $20 million Roquan. Instead of whatever, you got an $18 million OBJ. It's just some people get enamored in this whole like paying new money. But there are all these other teams that we can go look at that are doing the same thing and allocating that same money to other positions.
Yes, sir. I do agree. I think the depth is good. I think that they'll be able to get this thing situated. But thank you guys for tuning in to the Wincinnati podcast. We are going to be coming at you guys actually next Thursday. Typically we do Tuesdays, but we have a special guest coming next Thursday. We're not going to announce it yet. It's a lot of craziness right now on Bengals Twitter, but stay tapped into @ZimHude, @NewStripe City. We might drop a couple of hints on Twitter. Make sure you follow the Wincinnati Pod @Wincinnati Pod there. But we will be coming to you guys at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Hit that notification bell. We appreciate that. And before we get out of here, Zim, was there anything that you wanted to say?
Appreciate you all. Make sure y'all let everybody know. Check me out. I'm actually on Threads now too. We were making a joke about that with Brett, but I'm hopping on there and I'm a little bit more unfiltered than Twitter right now. So you should check that out. But keep on rocking with us. Follow Wincinnati Pod. Make sure you tell others about us and that we're actively giving you these type of interviews, this type of insight, unlike any other. And that is very, very important for our fan base's knowledge. And we really take pride in that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Time to be a Bengals
How do
fan.
you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time. All time, man. Yeah. Shock the world.